I was sold to a mafia boss, a man who kills without blinking. But the first time we met, he asked me, "Did they feed you?" The door didn't open. It loomed. Isaac stood in front of it, fingers clenched so tight around the edge of his sleeve that the fabric wrinkled under the pressure. The guards behind him didn't speak. They didn't need to. Their silence pressed harder than words ever could. This was it. Marriage. Not love. Not choice. A contract. A cage with a name, Dominic. He swallowed, throat dry, pulse stuttering unevenly in his ears. He's a mafia boss. The words echoed like a warning carved into bone. Stories whispered in the dark. A man who killed without blinking. A man who turned cities into graveyards and never looked back. And now, your husband. The door opened. Not slowly. Not dramatically. Just enough to let him step into something colder than fear. The room was too quiet. Not peaceful, no. It felt controlled. Measured. Like even the air had permission to exist here. Isaac stepped in, eyes instinctively lowering. He didn't dare look around too much. Didn't dare touch anything. This place wasn't meant for people like him. It felt sharp. Expensive. Dangerous. Then, footsteps. Slow. Even. Each one landed like a quiet threat. Isaac's breath caught before he could stop it. He didn't need to look up to know. Him. The presence alone was suffocating. Heavy. Commanding. The kind of presence that didn't ask for attention. It took it. Still he looked. And immediately wished he hadn't. Dominic stood a few steps away, dressed in black, so clean it looked untouched by the world. His posture was relaxed, almost lazy, but his eyes. Cold. Not angry. Not emotional. Just empty. Like he had already decided everything that mattered, and none of it included mercy. Isaac's fingers trembled. This man is going to ruin me. Silence stretched. Long enough to choke on. Isaac lowered his gaze again, heart hammering painfully against his ribs. Say something. Say anything. But the words wouldn't come. Because what do you say to a man who could kill you before you finished the sentence? You look tired. Isaac blinked. Once. Twice. The voice wasn't sharp. It wasn't cruel. It wasn't anything like he expected. Slowly, too slowly, he looked up again. Dominic was still watching him. Still unreadable. But his voice, it didn't match. Isaac's lips parted slightly. Nothing came out. Dominic's gaze dropped briefly to Isaac's hands. Tight. Shaking. Then back to his face. Did they feed you? The question landed wrong. Not because it was harsh. Because it wasn't. Isaac stared at him, confusion flickering through the fear. This wasn't how this was supposed to go. He forced his voice to work. Why, yes. A lie. He hadn't eaten. He couldn't. The anxiety had twisted his stomach into something unrecognizable. Dominic didn't respond immediately. His gaze lingered. Sharp. Observant. Like he could see through the lie and was deciding whether to call it out. Isaac's chest tightened. He knows. Of course he knows. Men like him didn't miss things like that. But instead of exposing him, sit. The word came out flat. Isaac flinched. The reaction was immediate, instinctive, and painfully obvious. Silence followed. Then, please sit. Isaac froze. That one word, please, hit harder than any command. Carefully, like the ground might crack beneath him, he moved toward the sofa and sat down on the edge. Back straight, hands in his lap, eyes lowered, waiting. For what, he didn't know. Judgment? Dismissal? Something worse? Dominic didn't sit immediately. He watched. Isaac could feel it, every second of it, like invisible fingers tracing over his skin. Not invasive. Not predatory. Just there. Present. Too present. Finally, Dominic moved. He took the seat across from him, posture relaxed again, one arm resting against the back of the couch like he owned everything in the room. Which he probably did. The silence returned. But this time it felt different. Less like a threat. More like something waiting to be filled. Are you afraid of me? The question was direct. No softness. No hesitation. Isaac's breath hitched. Yes. The answer screamed inside him, raw and immediate. But saying it? Saying it to him? His fingers curled tighter. I don't know, he whispered instead. Cowardly. Safe. Dominic didn't react. Didn't get angry. Didn't laugh. Just watched him. Long enough that Isaac's pulse started climbing again. Then, you don't have to be. Isaac's head snapped up before he could stop himself. The words felt wrong. Not because they were cruel, because they sounded like reassurance. And reassurance didn't belong in a place like this. Not from someone like him. Why? Isaac asked before he could think better of it. The moment the word left his mouth, regret slammed into him. Too bold. Too direct. Stupid. But Dominic didn't snap. Didn't punish him for it. He just looked at him. Something shifted in his eyes. Not softer. Just focused. Because I won't hurt you. Simple. Flat. Certain. Like a fact already decided. Isaac's throat tightened. People like Dominic didn't make promises. They made outcomes. Time passed. Isaac wasn't sure how much. Minutes. Hours. Everything blurred into a strange, quiet tension that didn't explode the way he expected it to. No shouting. No cold dismissal. No cruelty. Just this. Strange. Careful. Controlled. Later, when the staff guided him to his room, Isaac moved like he was still waiting for something to go wrong. The room was beautiful. Soft. Warm. Nothing like the rest of the house. He stood in the middle of it, unsure what to do with himself. This didn't feel real. None of it did. Night came quietly. Too quietly. Isaac sat on the bed, knees drawn slightly in, staring at nothing. His mind kept circling back. You look tired. Did they feed you? I won't hurt you. They didn't sound like lies. And that scared him more than if they had. A soft knock broke the silence. Isaac flinched before he could stop himself. Come in. The door opened. Dominic stood there. For a second, neither of them moved. Then Dominic stepped inside. His gaze swept the room once, quick, assessing, before settling on Isaac. You didn't eat. Not a question. Isaac's lips parted. He couldn't lie again. I wasn't hungry. Dominic walked closer. Slow. Measured. Isaac's heart started racing again, but not entirely from fear this time. Something else mixed in. Something he didn't understand. Dominic stopped in front of him. Close enough that Isaac could feel the faint warmth of his presence. Not overwhelming. Just there. You should eat, Dominic said quietly. Then after a pause, I'll have something brought up. He turned to leave. Just like that. No pressure. No force. Nothing. Isaac stared after him, something tight forming in his chest. Why? He asked suddenly. Dominic stopped at the door. Didn't turn around. For a moment, Isaac thought he wouldn't answer. Then, because you're mine. The words should have sounded possessive. Controlling. Dangerous. But they didn't. Not entirely. There was something else buried underneath. Something softer. Something that made Isaac's chest ache instead of freeze. The door closed. And Isaac sat there in the quiet, heart racing for reasons he couldn't name. Down the hall, Dominic stood still for a moment, hand resting against the door he had just closed. His expression didn't change. Didn't soften. But his eyes. They lingered. Too fragile, he murmured under his breath. Then quieter. Mine. And for the first time in years, the word didn't feel like ownership. It felt like something dangerously close to need. The knife slipped. Ah! Isaac hissed softly as a thin line of red welled up across his finger. He stared at it for a second, almost surprised. Then instinct kicked in. He pulled his hand back, pressing the cut against his sleeve like he could hide it from the world. Careless. The kitchen was too big. Too polished. Too unfamiliar. Nothing here felt like it belonged to him. Not the marble counters, not the expensive utensils, not even the silence that followed him everywhere. Still, he wanted to try. Because this was his home now. Because he lived here. Isaac swallowed, glancing toward the door like someone might be watching. No one was. The guards stayed outside. The staff only entered when called. And Dominic. He was never here during the day. Relief loosened something in Isaac's chest, followed immediately by something heavier. Disappointment. He shook his head quickly, as if he could physically dislodge the thought. Why would you want him here? The man terrified him. The man. You're bleeding. Isaac jerked. The knife clattered loudly against the counter. He hadn't heard the door open. Hadn't heard footsteps. Hadn't sensed anything. Just that voice. Low. Calm. Too close. Isaac turned sharply, heart jumping into his throat. Dominic stood at the entrance of the kitchen, jacket still on, presence filling the room like something that didn't belong to the same world as soft things and warm light. How long have you been there? Isaac blurted, breath uneven. Dominic didn't answer. His gaze was fixed on Isaac's hand, on the thin streak of red. The air shifted. Not violently. Not loudly. just enough to make Isaac's skin prickle. Dominic walked toward him. Slow. Measured. Isaac's body tensed instinctively, his back pressing slightly against the counter. Too close. But Dominic didn't reach for him immediately. He stopped just within arm's length, eyes narrowing almost imperceptibly. Show me. It wasn't loud, but it wasn't a suggestion either. Isaac hesitated. Then slowly, reluctantly, he held out his hand. The cut was small. Barely anything. But Dominic's expression didn't reflect that. His brows drew together just slightly, like something about this insignificant injury, was unacceptable. You're careless, Dominic said. The words were flat. Isaac flinched anyway. I'm sorry. He didn't even know what he was apologizing for. For bleeding? For existing wrong? But before the spiral could deepen, Dominic reached forward. Isaac froze. The contact was brief. Careful. Dominic's fingers closed around his wrist. Not tight, not rough, just enough to steady it. Warm. Isaac's breath caught. Stay still. Isaac did. Not because he was ordered. Because he didn't trust himself to move. Dominic turned slightly, reaching for something from the counter. When had that gotten there? A small first aid kit, clean and precise, like everything else in this house. He opened it with practiced ease. Efficient. Controlled. Like he'd done this 100 times before. Isaac watched, confusion threading through the fear. You know how to do this? He asked quietly. Dominic didn't look at him. I've had worse. That wasn't an answer. But it felt like one. The antiseptic stung. Isaac flinched again, shoulders tightening. Dominic's grip shifted slightly, not tighter, just firmer. Steadier. Like he expected it. Like he'd already accounted for Isaac's reaction before it happened. Does it hurt? Isaac asked without thinking. The question slipped out soft. Instinctive. Wrong. Dominic paused. Just for a second. Then. No. Flat. Dismissive. But something in his eyes flickered. Quick. Gone. Isaac frowned slightly. He didn't believe him. The bandage wrapped neatly around his finger. Precise. Clean. Over before Isaac fully processed it. Dominic let go. The loss of contact was immediate. Noticeable. Isaac curled his fingers slightly, staring at the bandage like it didn't belong there. Thank you, he murmured. Dominic didn't respond. Instead, his gaze drifted to the counter. To the half-cut vegetables. To the knife. Then back to Isaac. You shouldn't use sharp things. Isaac blinked. What? You'll get hurt. The logic was so simple it almost felt absurd. Isaac let out a small, disbelieving breath. I was just cooking. There are staff for that. I know, but... Isaac hesitated, searching for the right words. I wanted to do something myself. Dominic went quiet. Not dismissive. Not disapproving. Just thinking. That seemed to happen a lot around Isaac. Like everything he did needed to be recalculated. You don't like the food? The question came suddenly. Isaac shook his head quickly. No, it's good. I feel useless. He didn't say it. Didn't dare. But Dominic's gaze lingered on him like he heard it anyway. You're not staff. Isaac stilled. You don't have to earn your place here. The words landed heavier than they should have. Isaac's throat tightened. Then what am I? A contract? A responsibility? A burden? The insecurity twisted quietly under his ribs. Replaceable. Temporary. Something that could be removed once it stopped being convenient. Eat with me tonight. Isaac blinked, pulled from the spiral. What? Dominic had already turned slightly, reaching for his phone. I'll be home early. Like it was decided. Like Isaac's answer didn't matter. Then, as if remembering something, he looked back. Don't cook. A pause. Please. Isaac stared at him. That word again. Soft. Out of place. Dangerous in a way he couldn't explain. Okay, he whispered. That evening felt different. Too quiet. Too intentional. Isaac sat at the dining table, hands folded in his lap, eyes flicking toward the door every few seconds. Waiting. Why was he waiting? The question irritated him. And yet, the moment the door opened, something in his chest eased. Dominic stepped inside, removing his coat with the same controlled movements. His gaze found Isaac immediately. Like it always did. Like it was automatic. You waited. Isaac stiffened slightly. You said. I know what I said. Dominic walked over, pulling out the chair across from him. You still waited. Isaac looked down. I didn't want to eat alone. The words came out smaller than he intended. Too honest. Too exposed. Silence followed. Not cold. Not sharp. Just full. Halfway through dinner, a voice cut through the quiet. Boss! A man stepped into the room, stopping short when he noticed Isaac. His posture shifted instantly. Tense. Respectful. Cautious. Dominic didn't look at him. Speak. There's an issue with the shipment. We need your decision. Dominic's expression didn't change. Handle it. We tried, but... I said handle it. The temperature in the room dropped. Sharp. Final. The man swallowed, nodding quickly. Yes, boss. His eyes flicked toward Isaac again. Just for a second. Then he left. Silence returned. But it felt different now. Heavy. Isaac hesitated. Was that important? Dominic picked up his glass, taking a slow sip. No. It was a lie. A clear one. Isaac could feel it. You didn't have to ignore it, he said softly. Dominic's gaze lifted. I wasn't ignoring it. Then why? Because I'm here. Simple. Certain. Like that explained everything. Isaac's chest tightened again. For a different reason this time. Later that night, Isaac stood by the window, watching the rain begin to fall. Soft at first. Then heavier. The glass blurred with droplets, the outside world dissolving into something distant and unreachable. Behind him, footsteps. Slow. Familiar. He didn't turn. You're going out again? He asked quietly. A pause. Yes. Of course. That was reality. Not this. Not the quiet dinners. Not the careful hands. This was temporary. Isaac's fingers curled slightly against the glass. Be careful. The words slipped out before he could stop them. Silence. Then, I always am. Isaac almost laughed. Because he didn't believe that. Not really. Behind him, Dominic watched. Isaac's small figure by the window. Fragile. Still. Soft in a world that would tear him apart without hesitation. Something tightened in his chest. Unfamiliar. Unwelcome. Isaac. Isaac turned. Yes. Dominic hesitated. Just for a second. Then. Don't open the door for anyone. Isaac frowned slightly. Why? A pause. Then. Because I said so. The answer was cold. Sharp. Back to the man everyone feared. Isaac flinched. Okay. Dominic watched the reaction. Something dark flickered in his eyes. Regret? No. Something worse. Awareness. He turned to leave. Stopped at the door. I'll come back early. Isaac didn't respond immediately. Then softly. I'll wait. Outside, the rain fell harder. Inside, something fragile settled deeper than it should have. And Dominic, for the first time in years, changed his plans. Because someone was waiting. Rain always sounded louder at night. Isaac sat curled at the edge of the bed, fingers twisting into the fabric of his sleeves as thunder rolled somewhere far away. The clock on the wall ticked too slowly. Each second stretched, heavy and uncertain. He said he'd come back early. Isaac glanced at the door again. Still closed. Still silent. Something uneasy had settled in his chest hours ago and refused to leave. It wasn't fear, not the sharp, suffocating kind he'd felt on the first day. This was quieter, colder, like something was wrong, and he just hadn't seen it yet. The sound came suddenly. A dull thud. Not from inside. From outside. Isaac froze. His breath caught mid-inhale, body going still as his ears strained against the silence that followed. Another sound. Voices. Low. Sharp. Not the calm, controlled tones he was used to hearing in this house. These were different. Urgent. Rough. His heart began to pound. Don't open the door for anyone. Dominic's voice echoed in his mind. Firm. Unyielding. Isaac swallowed hard, forcing himself to stay where he was. But the voices didn't stop. If anything, they got worse. One of them. A cry. Cut off too quickly. Isaac's fingers trembled. Something is wrong. The thought came fast. Instinctive. And before he could stop himself, he stood. The hallway was dim. Too dim. The lights that were usually on weren't. Isaac stepped out slowly, each movement hesitant, uncertain. The house didn't feel the same. The air was heavier. Thicker. Like it was hiding something. Hello? He called softly. No answer. Only silence. And then, a sound from downstairs. A voice. Familiar. Please. Isaac's heart stuttered. He moved. Faster this time. Down the hallway. Down the stairs. Each step louder than the last, echoing in his ears like a warning he ignored. Stop. Go back. But he didn't. The door to the lower hall was slightly open. Light spilled through the gap. Warm. Wrong. Isaac reached it before he could think better of it. His hand hovered over the handle, shaking. Then, he pushed it open. The world split. There was no other way to describe it. Because what he saw didn't belong in the same reality as the man who told him to eat, who said please, who wrapped bandages around his fingers like they mattered. Dominic stood in the center of the room. Not calm. Not distant. Not controlled in the way Isaac had come to understand. This was something else. Something colder. Something empty. A man knelt in front of him. Blood pooled beneath him. Dark. Thick. Spreading slowly across the floor. Isaac couldn't breathe. I didn't, I swear. The man's voice broke, desperate, shaking. Dominic didn't respond. Didn't react. Didn't feel. He lifted his hand. And for a brief, horrifying second, Isaac thought he might hesitate. That something, anything would stop him. It didn't. The gunshot echoed. Loud. Final. The man collapsed. Still. Silent. Gone. Isaac's back hit the door before he realized he had stumbled. His hand flew to his mouth, a broken sound forcing its way up his throat. No. It came out as a whisper. Weak. Unreal. This wasn't real. This wasn't. Dominic turned. Slowly. Like he already knew Isaac was there. Like he had felt him the moment he stepped into the hallway. Their eyes met. And Isaac's world shattered completely. There was no softness in Dominic's gaze now. No quiet restraint. No careful distance. Just nothing. Cold. Detached. The same eyes that had looked at him across the dinner table now looked at a dead body without a flicker. Isaac's vision blurred. His chest tightened painfully, breath coming in short, broken gasps. You. The word stuck. Refused to come out. Dominic didn't move. Didn't approach. Didn't explain. He just stood there. Watching. Waiting. You. Isaac tried again, voice shaking harder now. You killed him. It wasn't a question. It was worse than that. It was realization. Dominic's expression didn't change. Yes. Just one word. Flat. Certain. Like it meant nothing. Isaac shook his head slowly. No, you said. I won't hurt you. The memory twisted painfully in his chest. His hands started shaking harder. You're. The word came out before he could stop it. Before he could soften it. Before he could lie to himself. A monster. Silence. Heavy. Suffocating. It hit harder than the gunshot. For the first time, Dominic reacted. Not outwardly. Not violently. But something in his eyes. Shifted. Cracked. Just for a second. Then it was gone. Replaced with something colder. More controlled. More distant. Isaac stumbled back another step, his entire body trembling now. I didn't know. His voice broke. Tears blurred his vision. I didn't know. Everything made sense now. The silence. The guards. The fear everyone carried. The way people looked at Dominic. This was the truth. Not the man who sat across from him at dinner. Not the one who said please. That was a lie. It had to be. Dominic took a step forward. Isaac flinched violently. Don't. The word came out sharp. Panicked. Dominic froze. The distance between them felt like a line that couldn't be crossed. Stay away from me. Isaac's voice dropped, quieter now. But no less afraid. No less certain. Dominic's hand tightened slightly at his side. Not enough to notice. But enough to feel. For a long moment, neither of them moved. The rain outside grew louder. The blood on the floor spread wider. The silence stretched until it hurt. Then Dominic stepped back. Once. Twice. Putting space between them. Not because he was told. But because he understood. Go back to your room. The voice was steady again. Controlled. Cold. Isaac shook his head, tears slipping down his face. I don't want to see this. Then don't. The answer came immediately. Too fast. Too sharp. Like it was easier to shut it down than explain it. Isaac turned. He didn't remember deciding to. Didn't remember moving. But suddenly he was walking. Then running. Back up the stairs. Back to his room. Away from that room. From that man. From that truth. The door slammed behind him. Locked. Like that would keep everything out. Like that would make it all disappear. Isaac slid down against it, hands covering his mouth as sobs broke through his chest. He lied. The words came out broken. Shattered. He lied. Downstairs. Dominic stood alone. The body had already been taken away. The blood cleaned. The room reset. Like nothing had happened. like it never existed. But something had. Something that couldn't be erased so easily. "Boss!" A voice cut through the silence. His right-hand man stepped forward cautiously. "Should we proceed with the next?" "No." The word came out quiet. "Final." The man hesitated. "But the deal?" "I said no." The air shifted instantly. "Dangerous." "Sharp." The man lowered his head. "Yes, boss." Silence returned. Heavy. Unforgiving. Dominic stood there for a long time. Not moving. Not speaking. Just thinking. Upstairs. Behind a locked door. Isaac's quiet sobs hadn't stopped. Dominic turned his head slightly. Toward the ceiling. Toward the room above. Toward him. Too soon. The words were barely audible. Almost lost in the silence. He had tried to keep it separate. Tried to keep Isaac away from this world. From this version of him. But it didn't matter now. Because Isaac had seen. And the way he looked at him. Not confusion. Not uncertainty. Not even anger. Fear. Dominic closed his eyes briefly. Something tight pulling in his chest. Unfamiliar. Unwelcome. "Stay away from me." The words echoed back. Not as an order. Not as rejection. As something worse. A line. And for the first time, Dominic didn't know if he could cross it again. The silence didn't heal. It rotted. Isaac felt it in everything. The untouched meals, the cold sheets, the way the mansion swallowed sound like it was afraid of its own secrets. Days passed. Or maybe just hours. Time blurred into something heavy and unkind. Dominic didn't come back. Not to him. Not to the room. Not to the version of himself Isaac thought he knew. Isaac sat curled on the couch, fingers gripping the fabric of a blanket he hadn't realized he'd been holding all morning. His eyes burned. Not from tears. From holding them back. "You're a monster." The words replayed in his mind like a wound he kept pressing into. He shouldn't have said that. But it wasn't a lie. That was the problem. A soft knock broke the silence. Isaac flinched. "Why, yes." The door opened slightly. One of the staff stepped in, head lowered. "Sir, would you like something to eat?" Isaac shook his head quickly. I'm not hungry." A pause. The staff hesitated, then spoke carefully. "The boss has instructed us to ensure you eat properly." Isaac's chest tightened. "Of course. Even now. Even after." He forced a small nod. Later. The staff left. And the silence returned. Isaac exhaled shakily, pressing his hands to his face. Why does he still care? He should hate him. He should be angry. Terrified. He was terrified. But that wasn't the only thing he felt. And that scared him more. A sound echoed faintly from downstairs. Not unusual. Not loud. But wrong. Isaac's head lifted slightly. He listened. Nothing. Just silence again. He stood slowly. Carefully. Like the ground might shift beneath him if he moved too fast. The hallway outside his room felt colder than usual. Empty. Too empty. Where were the guards? They were always there. Always watching. Always present. Hello? No answer. Isaac's pulse began to climb again. Something's wrong. The thought came faster this time. Sharper. More certain. Then, a hand grabbed him. Hard. Fast. Isaac gasped, the sound tearing out of his throat as he was yanked backward before he could even react. Don't scream. The voice was low. Unfamiliar. Cold. His body locked instantly. Fear slammed into him, sharp and suffocating. H.E. Quiet. The grip tightened. Pain shot through his arm. Isaac's breath hitched. His eyes darted around wildly. 2. No, 3 men. Not staff. Not guards. Strangers. No, you can't, Dominic. He's not here. The words cut through him. Clean. Precise. Final. Isaac froze. He won't save you. The world tilted. His body struggled instinctively, panic taking over. Let me go. A sharp blow to his side knocked the breath out of him. Pain exploded through his ribs. His vision blurred. Don't make this harder. The last thing Isaac saw was the hallway. Empty. Silent. Like no one had ever been there. Darkness swallowed him whole. You made him weak. The voice was familiar. Respectful. Loyal. Or at least, it used to be. Dominic stood in the center of the room, expression unreadable as his right-hand man spoke. This is what happens when you let something like that stay by your side. Silence. Heavy. Deadly. Where is he? Dominic's voice was quiet. Too quiet. The man smiled slightly. Safe. For now. A pause. Then, depends on you. The air changed. Instantly. Violently. Dominic didn't move. But something beneath his skin did. Something sharp. Something lethal. You betrayed me. Not a question. Not anger. Just fact. The man didn't deny it. Didn't even look ashamed. He was a distraction. A weakness. I removed the problem. Dominic tilted his head slightly. Like he was considering the words. Weighing them. Measuring their worth. Then, he moved. Fast. Too fast. The sound of impact echoed before the man even realized what happened. His body slammed into the wall, choking on the force of it. Dominic's hand tightened around his throat. Lifting. Effortless. Terrifying. You touched him. The words came out low. Controlled. But the violence behind them. Unmistakable. I didn't. Where? One word. No room for anything else. The man's confidence cracked. Fear seeped in. Too late. Warehouse East. The grip tightened. A sharp, broken gasp escaped him. Dominic let go. The man collapsed to the floor, coughing violently. Alive. For now. Clean this up. Dominic didn't look back. Didn't wait. Didn't hesitate. Because something inside him had already snapped. The warehouse smelled like rust and damp concrete. Blood. Fear. Isaac's consciousness returned slowly. Pain came first. Sharp. Everywhere. His wrists burned. Tied. His breathing was uneven, chest tight from the earlier blow. He tried to move. A mistake. Pain flared again. He sucked in a breath, vision swimming. Awake? The voice sent ice through him. Isaac looked up slowly. The man standing in front of him wasn't Dominic, but he felt just as dangerous. Colder. Crueler. You're pretty. The words made Isaac's stomach twist. But not worth this much trouble. Isaac's throat tightened. Dominic will. Come. The man laughed softly. Of course he will. A pause. His eyes darkened. That's the point. Fear wrapped tighter around Isaac's chest. But beneath it, something else stirred. Something stubborn. Something desperate. He's not like you think. The words slipped out before he could stop them. Weak. But real. The man smiled. Sharp. Unkind. Isn't he? Silence. Heavy. Crushing. Then. Footsteps. Outside. Slow. Measured. Final. The man's smile widened. Right on time. The door opened. And Dominic stepped inside. Everything changed. The air. The atmosphere. The weight of the room itself. Dominic didn't look at anyone else. Didn't acknowledge the guards. Didn't acknowledge the man in front of him. His eyes. Locked on Isaac. For a second. Nothing moved. Then Isaac saw it. Blood. Not his. Not fresh. But there. Staining Dominic's hands. His clothes. His presence. The monster. The truth. The reality. Isaac's breath caught. And his body. Flinched. It was small. Barely noticeable. But Dominic saw it. And for the first time, something in his expression broke. I'm here. The words came out quieter than anything else in the room. Not a threat. Not a command. A promise. And then, the monster moved. Screams followed. Gunshots. Chaos. Violence that Isaac couldn't fully process. Didn't want to. It ended too quickly. Or maybe too slowly. Isaac couldn't tell. Silence returned. Heavy. Final. Dominic stood in front of him. Breathing steady. Unaffected. Untouched. Except for the blood. He reached forward. Slowly. Carefully. Isaac flinched again. And this time, Dominic stopped. His hand hovered in the air. Just short. Just out of reach. I scared you. The words were barely there. Almost lost. Isaac's chest tightened painfully. Because this time, he didn't know how to answer. The rain didn't stop. It clung to the windows like something desperate, something that refused to leave, just like the silence between them. Isaac sat at the edge of the bed, hands curled tightly in his lap, staring at the faint marks around his wrists. The ropes were gone. The pain wasn't. Neither was the memory. Gunshots. Blood. That expression on Dominic's face. Not anger. Not rage. Something colder. Something final. The door opened quietly. Isaac didn't look up. He already knew. He could feel it. The shift in the air, the weight of a presence that didn't need to announce itself. Dominic stopped a few steps inside. Didn't move closer. Didn't speak immediately. Like he was waiting. For rejection. For fear. for something he already expected. You should rest. His voice was calm, controlled, careful, too careful. Isaac let out a small, uneven breath. I've been resting. It came out softer than he meant it to. Weaker. Silence followed. Not sharp. Not tense. Just fragile. Your injuries. I'm fine. Isaac cut him off. Too quickly. Too defensively. The words hung in the air between them. Dominic didn't argue. Didn't step closer. Didn't force anything. He just stood there, like a man who had learned, too late, that force would only break what he wanted to keep. Isaac's fingers tightened. His chest felt too small. Too tight. Everything inside him tangled and pulling in opposite directions. Fear. Confusion. And something worse. Something that refused to leave. Why? The words slipped out quietly. Barely audible. But Dominic heard it. Of course he did. Why did you come for me? Isaac's voice trembled now. Not from weakness. From everything he was trying not to say. You could have just left me. Replaced me. Forgot me. Like everyone else did. Dominic didn't answer immediately. And that silence. It hurt. More than it should have. Because you're mine. The same words. The same tone. But this time, they felt different. Heavier. Not possession. Not control. Something else. Something Isaac didn't understand. That's not an answer. Isaac looked up then. Finally. His eyes were still red. Still tired. But there was something steadier in them now. Something searching. Dominic held his gaze. Didn't look away. Didn't retreat. Because I chose you. The words came out low. Certain. Unshaken. Isaac's breath caught. I didn't want this marriage. Dominic continued. Flat. Honest. I didn't want anything that came with it. A pause. Then. I saw you. Something shifted in his voice. Barely. But enough. And I changed my mind. The room fell quiet again. But this time, it wasn't empty. Isaac's chest tightened painfully. Because those words, they weren't pretty. They weren't soft. They weren't even comforting. But they were real. You lied to me. Isaac's voice cracked. There it was. The truth they hadn't said out loud. Dominic didn't deny it. Yes. No excuses. No justifications. Just truth. Isaac's hands trembled again. You said you wouldn't hurt me. I haven't. The answer came immediately. Sharp. Certain. Isaac shook his head. You killed people. I didn't hurt you. The correction was quiet. But firm. Unmoving. Silence stretched. Heavy. Unforgiving. Isaac's voice dropped. I was scared. There it was. Not accusation. Not anger. Just truth. Dominic's expression didn't change. But something in the air did. I know. 2 words. Low. Careful. Isaac's chest tightened. Then why didn't you stop? This time. Dominic hesitated. For a second. He looked human. Not the Mafia boss. Not the monster. Just a man who didn't have the right answer. Because if I stop, he said quietly, everything around me burns instead. Isaac stilled. That world doesn't disappear just because you don't see it. Dominic's voice was steady again. Controlled. But there was something beneath it now. Something raw. I tried to keep you away from it. A pause. Then. I failed. Isaac looked down. His fingers tightened against his sleeves again. I thought I was replaceable. The words came out small. Fragile. Like something he wasn't supposed to admit. Dominic moved. Not fast. Not sudden. Just closer. Isaac tensed instinctively. But he didn't pull away. Look at me. The words were soft. Not a command. A request. Isaac hesitated. Then slowly. He did. Dominic was closer now. Close enough that Isaac could see the faint exhaustion in his eyes. The small things. The human things. If you were replaceable, Dominic said quietly, I wouldn't have burned half the city to get you back. Isaac's breath caught. The words weren't exaggerated. Weren't dramatic. They were. Facts. And somehow, that made them worse. You scare me, Isaac admitted. His voice shook. But he didn't look away this time. Dominic nodded once. I know. A pause. Then. But I don't want to lose you. The honesty hit harder than anything else. Isaac's chest tightened. His vision blurred slightly. I was scared of losing you too. The confession slipped out before he could stop it. Silence. Then. Something shifted. The tension didn't disappear. The fear didn't vanish. But something else settled over it. Something quieter. Something stronger. Isaac moved first. Just a little. Just enough to close the distance. Dominic didn't move. Didn't reach out. Didn't risk it. Isaac's fingers hesitated, then lightly caught the edge of Dominic's sleeve. Not tight. Not desperate. Just there. You're still scary, Isaac whispered. A pause. Then, but you're my husband. Dominic's breath stilled, and for the first time, he moved carefully, slowly, like approaching something fragile. His hand lifted, stopped, waited. Isaac didn't flinch, so Dominic closed the distance, his fingers brushing lightly against Isaac's wrist. Gentle, careful, like he was afraid of breaking something. For others, Isaac said softly, a faint, shaky smile forming, you might be a ruthless alpha. He looked up at him fully now. No fear. No hesitation. But for me, a small pause. Then, you're just my sweet husband. Something in Dominic's chest snapped. Not violently. Not painfully. But completely. He pulled Isaac into him. Not rough. Not desperate. Just close. Secure. Certain. And Isaac didn't resist. Outside, the rain finally began to slow. The storm breaking into something softer. Something quieter. Inside, the monster didn't disappear. The world didn't change. The danger didn't fade. But Isaac stayed. And Dominic, for the first time in his life, didn't feel like he was standing alone in the middle of it. The mansion had never sounded like this before. Too quiet. Not the controlled silence Isaac had grown used to. Not the sharp, suffocating stillness that followed Dominic's presence. This was different. Soft. Careful. Like the entire house was holding its breath. Isaac shifted slightly against the pillows, wincing faintly as he adjusted the small bundle in his arms. He's sleeping again. His voice came out in a whisper, instinctively gentle. Like anything louder might break the moment. Dominic stood a few steps away. Not moving. Not speaking. Just watching. It was strange. Isaac had seen him covered in blood. Seen him pull the trigger without hesitation. Watched him destroy men twice his size without blinking. But now he looked uncertain. Do you want to hold him? Isaac asked softly. Dominic didn't answer. His gaze dropped to the child, small, wrapped tightly, barely visible beneath soft layers of white. Too small. Too fragile. Too breakable. I might hurt him. The words came out low. Not like a confession. Like a fact. Isaac blinked. Then frowned slightly. You won't. Dominic's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. I've never held something this small. Isaac almost smiled. Because for the first time, Dominic sounded unsure of something. Come here. Isaac shifted slightly, careful, adjusting the baby before looking up at him again. Slowly, Dominic hesitated. That alone would have shocked anyone who knew him. But then, he moved. Step by step. Measured. Controlled. Like approaching something far more dangerous than any enemy he had ever faced. He stopped beside the bed. Close enough now. Too close to pretend he wasn't affected. Isaac gently adjusted the baby in his arms. Support his head. Dominic's hands hovered. Midair. Still. Isaac glanced up. Dominic. That was enough. Slowly. Carefully. Dominic lowered his hands. His fingers brushed against the baby's blanket first. Testing. Like he expected resistance. Pain. Something. Nothing happened. So he moved again. One hand beneath the baby's head. The other supporting his back. Awkward. Uncertain. But steady. Isaac guided the transfer gently. Like this. And then, Dominic was holding him. The world didn't shatter. No alarms. No danger. No blood. Just silence. Dominic stared down at the child in his arms. Unblinking. Still. The baby shifted slightly. A small sound escaping him. Soft. Barely there. Dominic froze. His entire body going rigid. He's fine, Isaac murmured, watching him carefully. He just moved. Dominic didn't respond. Didn't move. Didn't breathe. Then, slowly, something changed. His grip didn't tighten. Didn't loosen. But his shoulders dropped. Just slightly. He's warm. The words came out quieter than anything Isaac had ever heard from him. Isaac smiled faintly. Of course he is. Dominic's gaze didn't leave the child. He's small. He's a baby. Silence. Then, he looks like you. Isaac blinked. He does. Dominic nodded once. Soft. Isaac huffed softly, a small laugh slipping out before he could stop it. You're calling your son soft? Dominic didn't look up. He shouldn't be like me. The words landed heavier than anything else in the room. Isaac's smile faded slightly. His gaze softened. He won't be. Dominic's hands shifted slightly, careful, instinctive, as the baby stirred again. This time, he didn't freeze. Progress. He'll be loved. Isaac continued quietly. That's enough. Dominic's expression didn't change. But something in his eyes did. I don't know how to do that. Isaac didn't hesitate. You already are. That made Dominic pause. For the first time since he picked him up, he looked up. At Isaac. How? Isaac tilted his head slightly. A small, tired smile forming. You came back alive. A pause. Then softer. That's more than enough for him. Silence filled the space between them again. But this time, it wasn't heavy. The baby let out a small sound. A quiet, sleepy noise. Dominic looked down again immediately. Focused. Alert. Like he had just been handed something more important than his entire empire. What if he cries? Isaac blinked. Then you give him to me. What if you're not here? The question came too fast. Too sharp. Too real. Isaac stilled slightly. Then softened. Then you stay with him. Dominic didn't respond. But his hold on the child adjusted. More secure. More certain. He trusts you already. Isaac added quietly. Dominic's gaze flickered. How do you know? Isaac smiled faintly. Because he's not crying. That seemed to matter. A lot. Dominic looked down at the baby again. Long. Careful. Like memorizing something he never wanted to lose. Mine. The word slipped out. Quiet. Automatic. Isaac didn't correct him. Because this time, it didn't sound like possession. It sounded like something else. Something deeper. Something dangerously close to love. Across the room, one of the guards shifted slightly. Another leaned closer to whisper. Boss is smiling. Don't say that out loud. Isaac caught the faint exchange and huffed quietly under his breath. You're scaring them again. Dominic didn't look away from the baby. Good. Isaac rolled his eyes slightly. Try not to traumatize your child too. A pause. Then. I won't. Simple. Certain. Final. Isaac leaned back slightly, watching them both. The ruthless alpha. And the tiny life in his arms. Two things that should never have fit together. And yet, they did.